Welcome to Slash Forward. In this episode, we're going to get unhinged with the 1982 film Unhinged. And if you've ever fallen victim to a strange man masturbating inside your wall, consider subscribing to the channel. Let's get to it. We open in darkness to the sounds of crickets and shuffling about. When the dawn breaks, we find Terry getting ready and taking in the morning news. She gets a call from her mom, and we learn from the conversation that Mother has trepidations about a planned trip Terry's going on with her ne'er-do-well friends. Sure enough, they show up, listening to hardcore rock and roll.
Get in!
Before long, they find themselves traversing the vast New England wilderness, enjoying a pot cigarette, some occasional salty humor, and news reports of girls that have gone missing from the area toward which they're traveling. But they're sidetracked by heavy rains, causing them to fail to see a downed tree which runs them off the road. Terry wakes up in the house of Marion Penrose, having been dragged there by her friend Norman, who, as an official jack-of-all-trades, took it upon himself to gently bathe and clothe her before putting her to bed. Her friends Nancy and Gloria are also banged up and in their own rooms. The only phone is in town, and the only way to town is a perilous walk through the woods, so for now, they're staying put. Soon, Terry and Nancy are seated for dinner, which is a formal affair in this household. Gloria, having suffered more serious injuries, is still recovering. They eat quietly and in alarmingly small bites, and observe Marion's mother Edith behaving like a lunatic. She reveals a tendency to use any opportunity for conversation to demonstrate that she's a man-hater who's bitter about her ex-husband's behavior, and to impart her opinion that Marion, her daughter, is a skank bitch. After dinner, they enjoy some parlor games while Marion tickles the ivories. Outside, a shrouded figure shambles toward the house, breathing heavily and lurking in the shadows just outside the window. The girls gossip a bit before bedtime and resolve to get a tow truck and get the hell out of there the next day. Terry, in particular, has been feeling an odd sense of deja vu when you have a creeping suspicion that someone is watching you. You know, deja vu? She wakes up in the night to an odd bumping noise and looks out to see someone creeping around the maintenance shed, but she decides to mind her own damn business and go back to bed. However, she's woken up again to the sound of breathing that is heavy and approaching climax. She tells Nancy about her experience, confirming it sounded
like he was doing himself. Oh God.
And they flip a coin to verify who will make the trip into town the next day. The next morning, after getting hike ready, they tell their plan to Marion, who points Nancy in the general direction. She soon finds herself in the wilderness, bouffant unteased, and she emerges to a man with a scythe who awkwardly mistakes her for a wheat field somehow. Back at the house, the filmmakers unveil a charming little plot device where Terry stares vacantly as Marion unleashes loads of exposition into her dome. She reveals that her dad was caught engaging in a sexual relationship with a 9-year-old, destroying their family name, driving her mom crazy, and resulting in his institutionalization. Later, they saddle up for dinner, sans Nancy. They do normal dinner stuff. Chew, stare intently at these little crystal dishes. Marion, on cue, starts a conversation that converts to a discussion about the burdens of parenthood, which further converts to a conversation about Edith's presumptions as regards Marion's whoring. Later on, we again get that sweet, sensual breathing. And 2 nights in a row, you sex god! Terry pursues the orgasm upstairs where she finds a room with some weapons and a picture of some kids, but no pervert. And back in her room, she hears a noise and lucks out as she finally finds her pervert. Hey guy! She runs off and finds Marion, who decides again to pour exposition into her ear. The harmless, destitute peeper is her brother Carl. He has the mentality of a child, but is not allowed into the home due to her mother's hatred of men. So Marion leaves food for him and he lives on his own in the woods. The next day, as always, Terry goes somewhere due to the presence of a strange noise, and finds Norman splitting logs. She tells him about Nancy's trip, which is concerning to him. The path to town is only a couple of miles and is treacherous, not because of the terrain, but because of the frequency with which hikers go missing. And Terry rushes off to tell this news to Gloria, the third friend. Remember her? She's in the movie now. And we see little brother Carl is watching. That night, we get a POV shot of someone creeping out of the darkness and exacerbating Gloria's head trauma. The next day, Terry finds Gloria's room empty and turned down. Confused, she goes to ask Marion, who hasn't a clue where she might be. So Terry searches for her outside. As she lurks around, she finds her lurking path and Carl's lurking path cross, and she's pursued into the shed where she falls into a pit of lady parts. Among the various bits and pieces are her friends. She manages to slip out and head straight for the weapon room with Carl close behind. He mistakes this for a game of tag and finds himself the recipient of a headshot. Marion is disgusted by all this senseless violence and asserts Carl's innocence, so Terry hits her with news of the goings-on in the shed. This is where Marion comes clean, and her voice drops a couple of octaves, and we see she has some chest pubes as well, because Marion is a man, and he hacks Terry incessantly while, again, continuously expositing to her about the pressure he's constantly under to care for his family, considering all their special needs and requirements. And he continues blabbing well beyond the point where she can hear him anymore, but sometimes it's just nice to speak your troubles into the universe. And the movie ends with Mother calling him to dinner. Well, that was a slow, rickety roller coaster. Given the subject matter and outcome, I'd have to classify Unhinged as a less interesting sleepaway camp. The main improvement would have been to roll the storytelling in with the action, and for the movie to contain acting. If you enjoyed the video, I'd love for you to become a part of the channel by subscribing. Thanks for watching.